My name is Elena Martinez and I'm 28 years old. 3 months ago, I watched my younger sister walk down the aisle in the exact venue I'd booked wearing a dress suspiciously similar to mine, marrying her fiancé on what was supposed to be my wedding date. But here's the thing nobody expected. Halfway through her vows, every screen in that beautiful ballroom lit up with a video that changed everything. The footage showed conversations, text messages, and moments that revealed a conspiracy so twisted it didn't just destroy her perfect day. It obliterated our entire family's foundation and exposed secrets that had been buried for over a decade. Hey everyone, before we dive into this absolutely wild family revenge story, I'm curious, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. And if you're already hooked by this wedding disaster preview, smash that like button because trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because this story has more twists than a soap opera. Now let's get into how my sister's dream wedding became her worst nightmare. Let me take you back to where this all started. Last year, I was planning what I thought would be the wedding of my dreams. After dating Marcus for 4 years, we finally got engaged and I was over the moon. I'd found this incredible venue. Rosewood Manor, this gorgeous estate with gardens that looked like something out of a fairy tale. The booking fee alone was $8,000 and the total package was going to cost us $35,000. It was a stretch financially, but Marcus and I had been saving for 2 years. My sister, Sophia, who's 25, had always been what you'd call the golden child. Where I worked 2 jobs through college and graduated with student debt, she somehow always had everything handed to her. Our parents, especially our dad, seemed to think she could do no wrong. When she started dating Ryan about a year ago, everyone immediately loved him. He was charming, successful, and came from money. Basically everything my parents wished Marcus was. The first red flag should have been when Sophia suddenly got engaged just 3 months after I did. The proposal was this elaborate affair at a fancy restaurant with photographers and everything. It felt rushed, but I tried to be supportive. After all, she was my sister and I wanted her to be happy. But then things got weird. She started asking really specific questions about my wedding plans. What flowers was I choosing? What style dress? What was my timeline? I thought she was just being sisterly and maybe looking for inspiration. I even showed her pictures of my venue and talked about how perfect the garden ceremony was going to be. The real shock came 6 weeks before my wedding. I was at work when my wedding planner called panicking. There had been a mix-up with the dates, she said. Apparently, someone else had booked Rosewood Manor for the same weekend, and since they'd paid their deposit first, they had priority. I was devastated and confused. How could this happen? I'd booked this place 8 months in advance. When I got home that night, Marcus was waiting with flowers and this apologetic expression. He explained that he'd gotten the call too and had spent the afternoon trying to sort it out. We'd have to find a new venue, and with 6 weeks' notice, our options were limited and expensive. That's when Sophia called with her amazing news. She and Ryan had decided to move up their wedding date. They'd found this incredible venue. She was so excited to tell me about it. My blood ran cold as she described Rosewood Manor in perfect detail down to the specific garden where I'd planned to say my vows. "Isn't it funny how things work out?" she said, her voice sickeningly sweet. "The universe just aligned perfectly for us. You'll find something even better, Elena. You always do." I confronted her directly. "Sophia, that's my venue. I booked that place 8 months ago." Her response still makes my stomach turn. She acted genuinely surprised, like this was all just an incredible coincidence. "Oh my God, really? The wedding planner never mentioned that." "Well, we've already signed the contract and sent save the dates. I'm sure you understand. Changing everything now would be impossible." My parents' reaction was even worse. When I called them upset and looking for support, they told me I was being dramatic. Dad actually said, "Elena, you need to be happy for your sister. These things happen and family comes first." Family comes first. That phrase would haunt me for months. Marcus and I ended up postponing our wedding. We couldn't afford another venue on such short notice, and honestly, the whole situation had left me emotionally drained. We decided to wait until the following spring, giving us time to save more money and plan properly. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just bad luck or coincidence. Something about the whole situation felt orchestrated, calculated. Sophia had gotten everything. My date, my venue, even some of the vendors I'd been in talks with. It was like she'd taken my entire wedding blueprint and made it her own. The worst part was how isolated I felt. Our family was so caught up in Sophia's wedding excitement that my pain seemed invisible. Every family gathering became about her dress shopping, her menu tastings, her flower arrangements. I was expected to smile and be supportive while watching her live out my dream wedding. That's when I decided I needed to understand what had really happened. I started asking questions, making phone calls, and digging into the timeline of events. What I discovered would change everything I thought I knew about my sister, my family, and the life I'd been living for the past 28 years. My investigation started innocently enough. I called Rosewood Manor directly, pretending to be interested in booking for a future event. The coordinator, Margaret, was friendly and helpful. When I casually mentioned hearing about a recent booking mix-up, she seemed confused. Mix-up? We're very careful about our booking system. We've never had a double booking situation, she said proudly. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. I pressed gently, explaining that a friend had mentioned losing her date due to another couple booking first. Margaret's tone shifted. Well, there was one unusual situation recently. A young woman came in claiming her sister had recommended the venue. She had very specific requests, wanted the exact same package, same decorations, even the same ceremony setup. She knew details that we typically only share with confirmed clients. My heart started pounding. Did she mention her sister's name? I believe it was Elena something. She said Elena had described everything in such detail that she just had to have the same thing. She paid the full deposit on the spot and asked us to move the previous booking. Said it was a family emergency and they needed to marry quickly. I felt sick. Sophia hadn't just stolen my date. She'd used my name and our supposed sisterly bond to manipulate the venue into giving her my slot. But this was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, I became a detective in my own life. I started paying attention to conversations differently, asking subtle questions, and piecing together a timeline that made my blood boil. I discovered that Sophia had been planning this for months. She'd been to several of my vendor meetings, claiming she wanted to learn about wedding planning for her future someday. I'd thought it was sweet sister bonding time. In reality, she was taking notes, building relationships, and positioning herself as the backup client. The florist accidentally let it slip that Sophia had put down a deposit on my exact flower arrangement weeks before her official engagement. The photographer mentioned that she'd inquired about my specific date just in case her timeline changed. Even the caterer seemed confused when I asked about my original booking, saying that the other Martinez sister had been very insistent about taking over the contract. But the most devastating discovery came when I found Sophia's old phone. She'd gotten a new one and left the old iPhone in Mom's kitchen drawer. When I picked it up to charge it for her, it automatically connected to the Wi-Fi and started downloading messages. That's when I saw the text thread that changed everything. The conversation was between Sophia and someone named Dee, and it went back almost a year. The messages were detailed discussions about my relationship, my wedding plans, and something called the inheritance situation. One message from Sophia read, "She has no idea about Dad's will changes, still thinks she's getting half. This wedding move is just the beginning. Once she's out of the picture, everything goes to plan." Dee responded, "Your dad's been clear about preferring you since college. Just need to make sure Elena looks unstable or ungrateful. The wedding theft should start that narrative nicely." My hands were shaking as I read more. There were details about my private conversations with Sophia, things I'd shared, thinking I was talking to my supportive sister. She'd been documenting everything. My insecurities about Marcus, my financial stress, even my struggles with anxiety after mom's cancer scare last year. But the worst message was from just 2 weeks ago. Sophia Elena's breaking down exactly like we predicted. Dad's already saying she's being dramatic about the wedding thing. A few more incidents and he'll be ready to cut her out completely. D. Perfect. And you're sure about Marcus? Sophia? He's already showing cracks. The wedding stress is getting to him. Should be easy to finish that off too. I screenshotted everything, my heart breaking with each message. This wasn't just about a wedding venue. This was a calculated campaign to destroy my life, my relationships, and my place in the family. But who was D? The number wasn't saved with a name and the profile picture was just a silhouette. However, there was one message that gave me a crucial clue. D. Dinner Sunday was perfect. Your parents really bought the concerned family friend act. Elena never suspected I've been reporting back to you all along. Sunday dinner. I thought back to recent family dinners and who had been there. Then it hit me like a truck. David Chen, Marcus's best friend and best man. He'd been coming to family dinners for months, always so interested in our wedding plans, always asking thoughtful questions about our relationship. The betrayal was so complete, so thorough, that I had to sit in my car for 20 minutes just to process it. My sister and my fiancé's best friend had been conspiring against me for almost a year. They weren't just trying to ruin my wedding, they were trying to ruin my entire life. That night I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to have a dramatic family meeting or demand explanations. Instead, I was going to let them have their perfect wedding day, and then I was going to give them a gift they'd never forget. The next month was the hardest acting job of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal while knowing that my sister and David were actively working to sabotage my relationship and turn my family against me. Every smile felt like poison, every family interaction was torture, but I knew I had to maintain the facade until Sophia's wedding day. I started my own careful planning. First, I needed more evidence. I couldn't just rely on text messages that I'd technically obtained illegally. I needed proof that would be undeniable and public. I began recording conversations. Whenever Sophia called to gloat about wedding details or make backhanded comments about my delayed plans, I had my phone ready. When David came over for dinner with Marcus and made subtle digs about our relationship, I captured everything. The breakthrough came 3 weeks before the wedding. Sophia, feeling confident and perhaps a bit too comfortable, invited me to lunch to clear the air. She wanted to make sure there were no hard feelings before her big day. I know this has been difficult for you, she said, reaching across the table to pat my hand. But honestly, Elena, this might be a blessing in disguise. You and Marcus have been having problems anyway. I kept my voice steady. Problems? What makes you say that? Oh, just things I've noticed. He seems stressed, distant. David mentioned that he's been having second thoughts. There it was. She'd just admitted that David was her source of information about my relationship. David said that, I asked innocently. Sophia's eyes lit up with malicious excitement. Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but David's worried about Marcus. He thinks you're too high maintenance for him. All the wedding drama has really shown your true colors. I let her talk. For 45 minutes I listened to my sister detail exactly how she and David had been manipulating the situation. She was so proud of herself, so convinced that she'd won that she couldn't help but brag about their strategy. She told me about how David had been feeding Marcus doubts about our relationship for months, how they'd orchestrated the venue situation by having David accidentally mention to Marcus that the wedding was getting too expensive and maybe we should postpone. How she'd been planting seeds with our parents about my instability and jealous nature. The best part, she said, practically glowing with satisfaction, is that everyone thinks you're just being a drama queen. Dad's already talking about changing his will. He's so disappointed in how you've handled all this. When lunch ended, I had over an hour of recorded confession. But I wanted more than just audio. I wanted visual proof of their conspiracy. That's when I remembered something. Sophia had been doing wedding planning meetings on video calls during COVID, and she'd never changed her habits. She still preferred video calls for important conversations. I realized that if I could somehow get her and David on a call together discussing their plans, it would be the perfect evidence. I created a fake crisis. I called Sophia crying, saying that Marcus and I had gotten into a huge fight and I thought he was going to call off our postponed wedding entirely. I begged her to help me understand what David might have told him. "Oh, honey," she said with fake sympathy that made my skin crawl, "let me conference David in. We need to figure this out." You know what? This story is hitting me harder than I expected as I tell it. The betrayal, the manipulation, it's bringing back all those emotions from that day. If you've ever felt betrayed by family or friends, drop a heart in the comments. Let's support each other through these tough stories. And please stick with me through this next part because the wedding day reveal is absolutely going to blow your mind. For the next 30 minutes, I listened to my sister and my fiancé's best friend discuss their campaign against me like it was a business strategy. David detailed how he'd been slowly poisoning Marcus against me, making him question our compatibility and financial future. Sophia explained her timeline for completely isolating me from the family. They talked about phase 2 of their plan, which would begin after Sophia's wedding. David would escalate his psychological manipulation of Marcus, while Sophia worked on convincing our parents that I was having a mental breakdown. The goal was to make everyone think I was unstable and undeserving of family support. Once she's completely isolated, Sophia said, Dad will finalize the will changes, and Marcus will probably leave her within 6 months. Then she'll have nothing, and we can finally move forward with our real plans. What real plans? I asked, still playing the devastated sister role. That's when they revealed the most shocking truth of all. David and Sophia were having an affair. They'd been secretly together for almost a year, planning to go public, once my life was completely destroyed, and Ryan was out of the picture. Ryan's so boring, Sophia laughed, but he's rich and he adores me. David and I figured we'd let him fund this perfect wedding and then in a few months I'll discover some incompatibility and divorce him. His family's prenup isn't that strict. I'll still walk away with plenty, David added. Plus, once Elena's out of the picture and Marcus is single again, it'll be easier to maintain our friendship. We can't have him getting suspicious about why I helped break them up. I recorded every word. By the time that call ended, I had enough evidence to destroy both of their lives. But I wanted their destruction to be as public and humiliating as they'd tried to make mine. That's when I started planning my own surprise wedding gift. I spent the next 2 weeks putting together a presentation. I gathered all the screenshots, audio recordings, and video evidence into a comprehensive timeline of their conspiracy. I created a video that told the entire story, from the first manipulative text messages to their confession of fraud affair and planned bigamy. But I needed a way to share it that would have maximum impact. That's when I remembered that Sophia had hired a videographer who specialized in live wedding experiences, including real-time displays of photos and messages from guests during the ceremony. I contacted the videographer, pretending to be a family friend who wanted to surprise the couple with a special video montage. I paid extra to ensure it would be played during the ceremony itself, right after the vows but before the kiss. It's a family tradition, I explained. A surprise reveal that always brings tears to everyone's eyes. The videographer was excited to be part of such a meaningful moment. He assured me the video would be displayed on all screens throughout the venue, the main screen behind the altar, the screens in the reception area, even the monitors in the bridal suite where the bridesmaids would be watching. As Sophia's wedding day approached, I felt a mixture of anticipation and sadness. I was about to expose the truth, but I was also about to blow up what remained of my family. Still, I knew I couldn't let their plan continue. They'd already done so much damage and they were planning to do so much more. The night before the wedding, I got a text from Sophia. Thanks for being such a good sport about everything. I know tomorrow will be emotional for you, but I'm glad you'll be there to celebrate with us. Family is everything, I texted back. You're absolutely right. Tomorrow will definitely be emotional. I can't wait to celebrate the truth with everyone. She had no idea what was coming. The morning of Sophia's wedding was picture perfect. Clear skies, gentle breeze, and the kind of golden sunlight that makes everything look magical. As I got ready in my bridesmaid dress, yes, she'd still insisted I be in the wedding party, probably to complete the image of family unity. I felt surprisingly calm. After weeks of anxiety and planning, the day had finally arrived. Rosewood Manor looked exactly as I had imagined it would for my own wedding. The gardens were decorated with white roses and baby's breath, the same flowers I'd chosen. The archway where Sophia would say her vows was draped in flowing fabric that caught the morning light beautifully. It should have broken my heart to see my dream wedding being lived by someone else, but instead I felt a strange sense of closure. This place would never hold happy memories for our family after today. I arrived early, ostensibly to help with last-minute preparations. In reality, I needed to make sure everything was set up correctly for the surprise I had planned. I checked with the videographer, confirming that the special family video was loaded and ready to play at the designated time. He was excited about the surprise element, telling me how much he loved being part of meaningful family moments. "Your sister is going to be so touched," he said, adjusting the main screen behind the altar. "Family tributes always make the best wedding memories." If only he knew. The guests began arriving around noon. I watched from the bridal suite window as people I'd known my whole life filed into the venue. Family, friends, relatives, Marcus's family, and Ryan's wealthy relatives who'd flown in from the East Coast. Everyone looked happy and elegant, completely unaware that they were about to witness one of the most dramatic family implosions in wedding history. Marcus arrived with David as his plus one, since David was technically still single as far as everyone knew. Watching David play the role of supportive best friend, chatting warmly with my parents and shaking hands with Ryan made my stomach turn. The man was a phenomenal actor, I'd give him that. In the bridal suite, Sophia was in full princess mode. Her dress was stunning. Not exactly like mine had been, but close enough that several people had commented on the similarity. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like she was living her absolute best life, which I suppose she was. "Elena, can you help me with my necklace?" she asked, turning her back to me, as I clasped the diamond necklace around her neck. A gift from Ryan's mother. Sophia caught my eyes in the mirror. "I want you to know how much it means to me that you're here today," she said, her voice soft and seemingly sincere. "I know this year has been hard on you with postponing your wedding and everything, but I really believe everything happens for a reason." The audacity was breathtaking. Even now, minutes before her ceremony, she couldn't help but twist the knife. "You're absolutely right," I replied, adjusting her veil. "Everything does happen for a reason. And today, everyone's going to understand exactly why things happened the way they did." She smiled at me in the mirror, completely missing the deeper meaning of my words. The ceremony was scheduled for 2 o'clock, with the reception to follow in the manor's grand ballroom. At 1:45, the wedding party gathered for final preparations. I took my place as the maid of honor, carrying a bouquet that should have been mine, walking down an aisle I should have walked down as a bride. But instead of sadness, I felt anticipation. Justice was about to be served, and it would be served publicly, dramatically, and completely. Ryan looked genuinely happy as he waited at the altar. The poor guy had no idea that his bride was planning to divorce him within the year, or that she was in love with another man. As much as I disliked being collateral damage in their scheme, I knew Ryan deserved to know the truth before legally binding himself to someone who saw him as nothing more than a bank account. The processional music began, and one by one the bridesmaids walked down the aisle. When my turn came, I made eye contact with David, who gave me a sympathetic smile that I now knew was completely fake. Marcus looked uncomfortable, which made sense given that David had probably been whispering poison in his ear all morning. Then came the bride. Sophia looked absolutely radiant as she walked down the aisle with our father. Dad looked proud and happy, completely unaware that his golden child was about to have her true nature exposed to everyone he cared about. The officiant began the ceremony with traditional words about love, commitment, and the sacred bond of marriage. If the irony wasn't so painful, it would have been hilarious. Ryan and Sophia exchanged the vows they'd written themselves. Ryan's were heartfelt and genuine, talking about how Sophia had brought joy and excitement into his life, how he couldn't wait to build a future with her. Sophia's were beautifully crafted lies about eternal love and partnership, delivered with the perfect amount of emotion to make several guests tear up. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the crowd erupted in applause. Ryan kissed his new bride with such genuine happiness that I almost felt guilty about what was coming next. Almost. Ladies and gentlemen, the officiant announced, before we conclude today's ceremony, the bride's sister has prepared a special family tribute video to celebrate this joyous occasion. I saw Sophia's face light up with surprise and delight. She actually clasped her hands together and mouthed "thank you" to me. The videographer gave me a thumbs up from his position by the main screen. "This is such a beautiful tradition," he announced to the crowd. "A surprise family video to celebrate the love story we've all witnessed today." The screens throughout the venue flickered to life, and my voice began to play over the sound system. "Hello everyone, and thank you for being here to celebrate what we all thought was a beautiful love story. My name is Elena Martinez, and I'm Sophia's sister. Over the past year, I've learned some things about my sister and this relationship that I think everyone should know before we truly celebrate this union." The confusion in the room was immediate and palpable. Guests turned to look at each other, then at me, then at the screens. Sophia's face went from delighted surprise to confusion to dawning horror in about 3 seconds. "What is this?" she hissed, but her microphone was still on from the ceremony, so her words echoed throughout the venue. On screen, my video continued with a calm, measured tone that contrasted sharply with the chaos beginning to unfold in the audience. "A year ago, I was engaged to be married to my longtime boyfriend Marcus. We had booked Rosewood Manor for today's date, paid our deposits, and were planning what we thought would be the happiest day of our lives. Then, in what seemed like an incredible coincidence, my sister Sophia also got engaged, and somehow ended up with the exact same venue date and many of the same vendors." The camera cut to screenshots of the venue booking confirmations showing my original reservation dated 8 months before Sophia's. Murmurs began rippling through the crowd as people processed this information. At the time, I thought it was just bad luck and poor communication. I was hurt, but I tried to be a supportive sister. I postponed my wedding and told myself that family comes first, but then I discovered that this wasn't a coincidence at all. The next section of the video showed the text messages between Sophia and David with their phone numbers clearly visible. I watched David's face drain of color as his own words appeared on screen for everyone to read. "My sister Sophia and my fiancé's best friend David have been having an affair for almost a year. But more than that, they've been actively conspiring to destroy my relationship, turn my family against me, and steal my inheritance." The recorded phone conversation began playing with subtitles for clarity. Sophia's voice filled the venue as she detailed their plan to isolate me and manipulate our father into changing his will. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Ryan turned to stare at his new wife with shock and betrayal written across his face. Marcus shot up from his seat, looking between David and me with confusion and growing anger. My parents looked absolutely stunned, and several of Ryan's family members were already standing up, their faces showing disgust and outrage. "Stop this!" Sophia screamed, lunging toward the videographer's equipment. But Ryan caught her arm. "Let it play," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "I want to hear everything." The video continued with more text messages, including the ones where Sophia and David planned to divorce Ryan after taking his money, and their detailed timeline for destroying my relationship with Marcus. "Elena's breaking down exactly like we predicted," Sophia's voice played from the speakers. "Dad's already saying she's being dramatic about the wedding thing. A few more incidents and he'll be ready to cut her out completely." I watched my father's face crumble as he heard his daughter's true feelings about manipulating him. The proud, happy expression he'd worn while walking her down the aisle was completely gone, but the most devastating part was yet to come. The video showed the recorded conversation where Sophia and David discussed their affair in detail, laughing about how easy it had been to fool everyone. "Ryan's so boring, but he's rich and he adores me," Sophia's voice echoed through the silent venue. "David and I figured we'd let him fund this perfect wedding and then in a few months I'll discover some incompatibility and divorce him." Ryan dropped Sophia's hand like it had burned him. The silence in the room was deafening except for the continued audio from the video. David finally spoke up, his voice shaking. "This is taken out of context." "Elena's been unstable and shut up," Marcus said, standing to face his former best friend. "Just shut up. I trusted you. I brought you into my family, asked for your advice about my relationship. You've been lying to my face for months." The video concluded with my final message. "I'm sharing this not for revenge, but because everyone here deserves to know the truth before celebrating what they think is a legitimate marriage." Sophia and David plan to continue their deception for months or even years, hurting more innocent people along the way. "Ryan, you deserve someone who actually loves you." "Marcus, I'm sorry you had to find out this way that your best friend betrayed both of us. And to my family, I hope you understand now why I seemed dramatic about losing my wedding venue." As the screens went black, the silence stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Then everything exploded at once. Ryan turned to Sophia, his face a mask of hurt and rage. "Is this true, any of it?" Sophia tried to play victim one more time. "Elena's been jealous and unstable. She's making this all up because she can't stand that I'm happy." But David, perhaps realizing that denial was impossible with so much recorded evidence, cracked under the pressure. "Sophia, stop! It's over. They have everything." That admission was the final nail in the coffin. Ryan stared at his bride of approximately 15 minutes, then slowly began removing his wedding ring. "This marriage is a fraud," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I'm calling my lawyer immediately to start annulment proceedings." Sophia finally dropped the innocent act. "You can't do this, we're married, you signed the papers." "A marriage based on fraud can be annulled," came a voice from the back. Everyone turned to see a woman in a business suit walking down the aisle. "I'm Sarah Chen, Ryan's family attorney. I've been listening to everything, and I can assure you that this marriage won't be legally binding by tomorrow." The venue erupted in chaos. Guests were talking loudly, some were leaving and others were recording everything on their phones. Sophia was crying angry, tears David was trying to slip out unnoticed, and Ryan was being comforted by his family members. But the most satisfying moment was watching my father approach me with tears in his eyes. "Elena, I owe you the biggest apology of my life," he said, his voice breaking. "I can't believe I fell for her manipulation. I'm so sorry, sweetheart." My mother was right behind him, wrapping me in the tightest hug I'd received in months. "We should have listened to you. We should have supported you. I'm so proud of you for being brave enough to expose this." Marcus appeared at my side, looking shell-shocked but determined. "Elena, can we talk privately?" As we walked away from the chaos, I could hear Sophia screaming at anyone who would listen that I'd ruined her life, that this was all an elaborate setup. But her voice was getting fainter as more and more people simply walked away from her. The wedding of the year had become the scandal of the decade. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe. 3 months later, I'm sitting in a coffee shop writing this story, and I can honestly say that karma delivered in ways I never could have imagined. The aftermath of Sophia's wedding day was swift and decisive, like dominoes falling in perfect sequence. Ryan's annulment was finalized within 2 weeks. His family's attorney was as good as she'd promised, and with the recorded evidence of fraud and the planned deception, there was no contest. Sophia tried to claim she was entitled to gifts and compensation, but she walked away with nothing except her dress and the jewelry she'd worn during the ceremony. Even the engagement ring had to be returned since it was a family heirloom from Ryan's grandmother. David disappeared from our lives entirely. Marcus confronted him the day after the wedding, and their friendship ended with David admitting to months of deliberate manipulation. Marcus also discovered that David had been lying about other things too, including having feelings for me himself, which had apparently motivated some of his sabotage efforts. The psychology of that betrayal was something Marcus needed therapy to process, but it ultimately made him more committed to rebuilding our trust. The legal consequences were more serious than I'd expected. Ryan's family decided to press charges for fraud since Sophia had signed legal documents while planning to immediately dissolve the marriage for financial gain. She ended up with a criminal record and had to pay substantial legal fees. David faced his own legal issues when it came out that he'd been embezzling small amounts from his employer to fund his secret relationship with Sophia. But perhaps the most satisfying justice was watching how quickly Sophia's social circle abandoned her. The video had been recorded by multiple wedding guests and spread through social media like wildfire. Her reputation in our hometown was completely destroyed. The influencer lifestyle she'd been building on Instagram crumbled when her followers learned about the manipulation and fraud. Brands that had been sponsoring her content dropped her immediately. My relationship with my parents took time to heal, but their horror at discovering how they'd been manipulated made them determined to rebuild our trust. Dad immediately reversed the will changes he'd been considering, and more importantly, he enrolled in family therapy to understand how Sophia had been able to manipulate his perceptions so easily. "I failed you as a father," he told me during one of our first honest conversations in years. "I let favoritism blind me to who my daughters really were. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure that never happens again." The most unexpected development was with Marcus and me. Going through this experience together, seeing how he'd been manipulated by someone he trusted actually strengthened our relationship. We both realized how much outside influence had been poisoning our communication. When we finally got married 6 months later, in a small ceremony at a venue that was completely ours, it felt like we were stronger than ever. Sophia tried to reach out several times in the months following her wedding disaster. She sent long emails alternating between apology and blame, claiming she'd been influenced by David or acting out of jealousy. But the recordings didn't lie. Her own words revealed a level of calculated cruelty that couldn't be explained away by temporary poor judgment. The last I heard, she'd moved to another state and was working in retail while trying to rebuild her life. David apparently moved back in with his parents and was dealing with his own legal and financial consequences. I don't take pleasure in their suffering, but I do feel satisfied that they can't hurt other people the way they hurt me and Ryan. Ryan and I became unlikely friends through this experience. He thanked me multiple times for saving him from what would have been a disastrous marriage. He's actually dating someone new now. A woman who knew about the whole scandal and didn't care which. He says gives him confidence that she's interested in him for the right reasons. The most healing part of this whole experience has been the support from people who witnessed the truth that day. Many of the wedding guests reached out to apologize for not seeing through Sophia's manipulation earlier. Some admitted they'd had concerns about her behavior but hadn't known how to voice them. But here's what I learned through all of this: sometimes the most painful betrayals come from the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. Family loyalty shouldn't mean accepting abuse or manipulation. And sometimes the only way to protect yourself and other innocent people is to expose the truth, even when it's messy and painful. I also learned that justice doesn't always come from the legal system or karma. Sometimes you have to create it yourself. I don't regret exposing Sophia and David at their wedding. It was dramatic, yes, but it prevented them from hurting more people and gave everyone involved the information they needed to make informed decisions about their relationships. Looking back, I realized that losing my original wedding date was the best thing that could have happened to me. If Sophia hadn't revealed her true nature so dramatically, I might have spent years wondering why she seemed to compete with me, why family gatherings felt tense, why certain relationships in my life felt strained. Now I know exactly who my sister is, and I can protect myself accordingly. More importantly, I know who my real family is. The people who stood by me when they learned the truth, who were willing to admit their mistakes, and who prioritize honesty over keeping up appearances. So here's my question for all of you who've made it through this wild family revenge story with me. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting yourself from toxic behavior? How do you handle it when the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are the ones causing you harm? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes sharing our stories helps us all heal from these difficult family dynamics. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in dealing with family betrayal. Subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories about navigating toxic relationships and finding justice when the system fails you. And remember, you deserve honesty, respect, and genuine love from the people in your life, regardless of whether you share DNA with them. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is tell the truth even when it's painful. Life has a way of teaching us who deserves our trust and who doesn't, and that's a lesson worth learning no matter how much it hurts at first. Until next time, remember that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to stand up for yourself when it matters most.